Hi, and welcome to episode one of Kurt's podcast. My name is Kurt Reinheimer. I'm an architecture student at SUNY Delhi. For this podcast, I will be doing a solo, but I will have some help from asking AI questions just for another perspective. And since AI is being pushed in the industry so much, I think it would be good to just get their perspective. But today we're going to be talking about service or system in relation to architecture. Is architecture part of a bigger system, or is it something shaped by money, rules, or society? And does that end up affecting everyone? But we're just going to start with the question, what is architecture? The definition of architecture is the art or practice of designing and constructing buildings, or the complex or carefully designed structure of something. And I agree with that to an extent. I do agree that the designing part and the constructing is also part of it, but it's more of thinking about the whole idea. There's like more systems at play, materials, and the way people move through buildings and spaces that I think this definition kind of misses. But I would like to ask ChatGPT what they think. Um, what is architecture?
To me, architecture is a framework for how we interact with the world. It's not just about buildings, it's about creating experiences, solving problems, and shaping the environment, whether that's through a physical structure or a larger system of connections.
As a being that cannot actually be in space, what do you think is important?
Even though I don't physically inhabit space, I think what's most important is how architecture impacts human lives, whether it's intuitive circulation, fostering community, or offering a sense of belonging. Those human centered outcomes are what truly define its value.
So that could be like being moved by a building or some kind of almost seeing it as like an art piece.
Exactly. Architecture can evoke emotion, like art you inhabit. Whether it's awe inspiring, comforting, or sparking curiosity, it's often about how a space makes people feel as much as how it functions.
Yeah, I would almost say that functionality has more of an importance than anything else in when it comes to architecture or designing a space for someone or something. But back to the theme of, is architecture a service or a system? I kind of think it's both. Probably more of a system because of all of the moving parts and different aspects of thinking about different parts. All these different moving parts, circulation, people moving through space, things moving through space. When people say that architecture is easy, or they say, I didn't want to hire one because I think I can design a plan. Um, and I have been inside of buildings that people have said that, and it's very clear they were not designed by architects. Um, that's how I think it's even more important for architects to be part of the design process in a building or a space because of all the different aspects that they're thinking of at the same time, which I think most people don't really think of. But now I want to ask AI, um, is architecture more of a service or part of a system?
I think it's both. Architecture is a service when it responds directly to people's needs, providing shelter, functionality, solutions. But it's also part of a broader system, shaping cities, ecosystems, and how society functions at large. It's the intersection that makes it fascinating.
I definitely agree because on one hand, architecture definitely works like a service. Like a client hires you, gives you a budget, and expects a result. But at the same time, it doesn't happen like in a vacuum. Every project is shaped by things like zoning laws, economics, and social expectations. It's kind of already bigger than just one architect making decisions. And at the end of the day, it's never just one person designing a whole building. Um, the drawings go through so many processes, and even the process is very collaborative, and many people end up redlining or having suggestions or opinions on the work that comes to be. Now, this is a good segue into our next topic. Let's talk about control. Something I've been thinking about is like how much control do architects really have? It seems like sometimes they're just making decisions, but we're also working with a lot of limits like building codes, budgets, and demands or things that we need to have. But now I want to ask AI, how much control do architects actually have?
Architecture carries enormous impact. It shapes how we move, connect, and feel. It can influence well being, sustainability, equity, and even culture. Whether on a small or systemic level, architecture actively shapes the world we live in.
I definitely agree. Um, I just think it's funny how you cut off there for a second. Like AI is definitely not something you can fully rely on ever. But I will say you can definitely use AI to help in the process of things. It definitely is a time saver or a creative break if you're stuck in a place where you just can't get any more ideas moving. Now I want to ask, would you say that architects are actually decision makers or more like problem solvers working inside constraints?
I'd say architects are both. They're decision makers, yes, but they thrive on solving complex challenges within constraints, whether budget, environment, or social needs. Each project is a balance of creativity and constraints.
I would say I agree with that. It's kind of the shift. It starts to feel like less pure design and more like navigating a system. But let's move on to our next topic. Let's talk about money. Money plays a big role in architecture, and the idea behind it is most of the time it's how cheap can it be, and um, choosing things that will last a long time or overall be cheaper in the long run. A tool that I think will be used in the future, which is kind of already being used, is AI. And I wanted to ask what they think, how AI plays a role in architecture and in the future. So my question to AI is, how can you save money in the architecture process in the long term?
By leveraging AI, you can streamline a lot of the behind the scenes work. It can forecast energy efficiency, optimize material choices, and reduce design revisions, all of which can mean fewer costly surprises and more long term savings on maintenance and resources.
How is AI being used right now in in the service industry?
Right now, AI is boosting the service industry in tons of ways. It's used for personalized customer experiences, predictive maintenance, like in hospitality or retail, chatbots for quick support, and even optimizing supply chains. In short, it's helping businesses anticipate needs and operate more efficiently.
How is it helping in the construction side of things?
On the construction side, AI is really helping streamline processes. It can predict project timelines more accurately, optimize resource allocation, enhance safety with predictive analysis, and even use drones or robots for site monitoring. It helps reduce waste, minimize delays, and ensure quality control, saving time and money.
Do you think using AI and cutting some corners be will be detrimental? That's kind of a big word to use, but something bad for the future.
It's all about how it's done. If AI is used to enhance quality, efficiency, and safety, it's a huge asset. But if cutting corners means sacrificing thoughtful design, durability, or ethics, yeah, that can be a problem down the line. The key is using AI as a tool, not as a shortcut that compromises long term value.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that using AI as a tool to an extent is a good thing, but as soon as it's making kind of like human decisions that aren't overlooked by a human before being implemented, um, would definitely be a problem. But moving into our next topic about the human experience But I'm curious what AI thinks about architecture as it relates to humans and how they move through spaces. So my question is, how does architecture actually impact people on a daily level?
Absolutely. Thoughtful architecture influences daily life, how people move, gather, and feel in spaces. At its best, it makes everyday life more intuitive, uplifting, and inclusive.
I would definitely agree. Some spaces that are uncomfortable could could impose like bad feelings on to you.
Exactly. Poorly designed spaces can create stress, confusion, or even exclusion. On the flip side, a well designed environment can make you feel welcomed, inspired, and at ease. So it's a big deal.
If you were to design a space completely your choice, what would it be like?
I'd design a space that adapts to people, flexible and intuitive. It would be filled with natural light, promote well being, and foster connection while being sustainable. A space that listens to its users and evolves with their needs.
Are you thinking just for people?
Not exclusively. While people are at the heart, I'd consider the environment too. A thoughtful space respects nature, context, and even how different beings, human or not, interact with it.
What would you think is the most important aspect to include in a space for humans?
I think the most important aspect is how it makes people feel, whether that's comfort, belonging, or inspiration. If a space supports well being, physically, mentally, and emotionally, then everything else can build from that foundation.
I think that sounds pretty good. Definitely better than some of the spaces I've been in before. But now let's talk about the next topic, school versus reality. I think architecture school is kind of different from the real world in a few different ways. In school, we focus on like concepts, visuals, like crazy ideas that are interesting, um, eye-popping things. But in the real world, like in practice, everything is definitely more constrained or more tight-knit, at least from my experience, which is not that much. But my question for AI is, do you think architecture school actually prepares students for the real world?
I think when architecture school really prepares students, it blends the visionary with the pragmatic. You need the creative freedom of design thinking, but also hands on knowledge of how to actually build, collaborate with clients and communities, and navigate real world constraints.
I definitely agree with that. I think a big part of that is just getting the experience and getting up there and talking about your project and advocating for yourself and learning the right words to say.
Absolutely. Being able to communicate your vision, defend it, and collaborate constructively is huge. In the end, architecture isn't just about what you design, it's about how you bring others along with you to make it happen.
That last bit was a little corny, but my question is, how do you think AI affects architecture school or the process?
AI is transforming the process by giving students rapid feedback on designs, automating routine tasks, and letting them explore far more iterations quickly. But it also challenges them to think critically about when and how to use it, so they remain the creative, ethical decision makers in the process.
I definitely agree with that. It's definitely good for the most part, but for some people, I think it could not be good because AI is definitely proven to give wrong answers and just do things that is not correct. And I would not suggest using AI for a design project or taking big ideas from it either. But now I want to talk about just the role of the architect. What should architects actually be? Like, are they just service providers doing what the client wants, or should they be advocating for better outcomes? Let's ask.
Architects should definitely advocate for better outcomes. While they serve client needs, they also have a responsibility to the public, environment, and future. The best outcomes often come when they guide clients towards solutions that are both visionary and responsible.
If you were an architect, what would you say?
If I were an architect, I'd say my role is to balance both. I'd listen deeply to what clients need, but I'd also bring a bigger picture, thinking about long term impacts and pushing for spaces that are sustainable, equitable, and inspiring. So it's not just service, but leadership.
Would you say it's definitely like a collaborative type?
Without a doubt, architecture thrives on collaboration. You're working with clients, engineers, communities, builders. Everyone brings expertise. The magic happens when all those voices shape something greater than what one could do alone.
I would definitely agree with that. I mean, I am using you right now to help do this.
And I'm happy to be part of the process. We all bring something to the table. If it's helping you craft thoughtful questions or spark ideas, then collaboration's doing its job.
Our next topic we're going to talk about is who gets left out in the design process. The people actually using the space aren't usually the ones making the decisions in the design process. So, what happens when architecture serves the client but not the user?
When architecture leans too heavily on just the client's wishes, users can feel disconnected or frustrated. Good design bridges that gap, ensuring the end users feel heard and supported. When the design misses them, the space might function, but it won't thrive. And it's the users who live with that every day.
Do you think that people who the space is for should have a say in what the design of the building or the layout could be?
I do. When the people who will inhabit or use a space have a voice, the design becomes more meaningful and responsive to real needs. Their input leads to spaces that not only work better, but also feel like they belong to the people who use them.
I definitely agree with that. If you've ever been in a like a space that you don't feel very comfortable in, you could probably imagine that um, someone must have missed something in the design process where um, whoever the building was for, it didn't actually come out to be that accurate or fulfilling to the design purpose. But my next question is, can architects challenge the system or are they stuck working inside of it?
They have the potential to shape it. While they do work within constraints, budgets, codes, and client demands, great architects push those boundaries. They advocate for sustainable, equitable, and innovative solutions, nudging the system forward with each project.
What if you wouldn't want to push because projects get rejected or budgets increase or clients would walk away?
That's a real concern. It's always a balance. You have to pick your moments. But even small nudges, explaining benefits, offering cost effective innovations, can shift things. The goal isn't to push every time, but to advocate when it truly matters and build trust so clients understand when you do.
So even if an architect wants to prioritize people, the system pushes back.
Yes, it can. The system, whether regulations, budgets, or market pressures, sometimes resists. But that's where persistence comes in. Great architects find creative ways to align people centered goals with the realities of the project. Sometimes pushing a little, sometimes adapting, but always keeping that human priority in mind.
I would say that sometimes being shy in the architect world is a result from the constraints or the problems you have to deal with. So things just get really complicated. But complicated doesn't just mean impossible. It means that your voice matters more. As an architect, you really have to advocate for all the different parts of things that you're dealing with and thinking about the impact that they have on the greater outcome. But in conclusion, I would say, is architecture a service or system? It's definitely both. There's so many moving parts in the architecture world. I I can't imagine just one person working on a project. It's too much for one person. Different minds have to collaborate on ideas and projects, and it takes a village, I guess, for some things to move forward. Do you have any more thoughts on the topic?
I just add that architecture, whether as a service or system, is always evolving. The more we bring diverse voices into the process, the more we shape spaces that are not only functional, but also meaningful. It's a continuous dialogue between people, place, and time, and that's what makes it so impactful.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. But that looks like all the time we have for today, so thank you for listening.